the second most average eliminations across the heats. They were beat out by only, to no surprise, Peterbot and Pollo. But again, I feel like the fact that they're able to pick up so many eliminations when, I feel like they're kind of a duo that's usually kind of playing that consistency game. I feel like the fact that they're right now seeming like they're just fragging out so well, I wouldn't be surprised if they are one of those teams to go ahead and pick up one of those qualifying spots today.
Yeah, and for me, this is one of the most surprising duos to see not qualified yet, because you look at their BR performances, this is a very consistent team who is always placing at the top of the leaderboard. And I've personally practiced against them before Grand Finals, and playing against Aders in Virtual, there's a noticeable skill difference with these two players. They are on another level. So, they've struggled in the first 3 qualifiers. Let's see if they can get it done today, Zeke.
I believe, right? I believe it's all good. I believe in Aders and Ritual. We only have just about 30 more seconds before we get on out of here. So really quickly, I'd love to hear immediate thoughts. What are you hoping to see today?
Listen, I just love good Fortnite. We know, also keep in mind, obviously, 4 of those spots could potentially roll down based on where some of those qualifying teams place. But outside of that, top 2 is where we're looking.
I got it right now. Acorn and Buddha.
Lots of grief on height. That's
Mid lane.
Oh, God.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes. Fortnite fam, get ready. This is the Reload Elite Series. So, casters, over to you.
You gotta appreciate Blake showing up, looking for chaos here on the main show right now. Jacob, it's 8 games of Fortnite ahead of us. They just broke down all the teams that realistically have a chance to fight for the top spots.
Yeah, and honestly, even though they did break down our superstar teams, 2026 has shown us it's our underdogs time to play. If you guys watched Fortnite yesterday, Division 1, Liam and Veer off 100-point win. So we all have our stars, but I wouldn't count any of these underdogs out.
Yeah, you definitely can, especially when you start looking at the likes of a Scare and Queasy teams that, of course, traveling over. Acorn and Bolt, I was starting to think most of these teams were at the LAN. They all got to perform relatively well, and Acorn and Bolt were the only team that was up towards the top 5, besides, of course, you have your likes of, the Peterbots and Pollos. But, as far as unqualified folks that are going to be fighting for it, we're just going to have to keep our eyes on them, because it sounds like game number 1 is ready now.
We're here jumping into game number 1. It's 8 games, so buckle up. It's going to be a long day of Fortnite action ahead of us. One of the teams we're talking about, Higgs and Curve, immediately getting dropped right out of the gate. Dozier was able to get that elimination early, and these are the intricacies that we look at when it comes to Reload. You see, they're not necessarily getting aggressive. This is a decent amount of space in the POI, but as soon as Higgs reboots back into the game, he kind of reboots right above Curve, who is the alive player, and that allows Dozier and Tyler a little bit of comfortability to kind of either hunt him down or just continue looting out.
Yeah, there's a reason why Reload as a mode is so loved from the Fortnite perspective in general, the pro player base, because you can take risks. You can do things that you wouldn't normally do in a BR. Dozier, you can see there, actually not only beats Higgs to the drop, but hits him with a little nudge. In addition, off to the side there, he gets the elimination credit there too. And Higgs is off to a very interesting start. I did notice in the feed, though, it looked like the Rets might have fallen to the hands of Scare, so I don't know if there's some mix-up on who's landing where, or again, because it's the Reload mode, folks are just thinking, hey, let's play a little bit of a split drop too, right? There are different types of strategies you can definitely put into place when you're talking Reload the game mode.
Yeah, and I think this is here is another example of what you're talking about. You see Rapid on screen, but if you look at his loadout, he doesn't have any shotgun and no cold anywhere in the minimap. In fact, you don't see a single player in the minimap right now. That's because Cold and Rapid, part of their strategy and how they perform well through the first 3 qualifiers is these early game eliminations. We know they can pack a punch in the end game in those close quarters combats, but the recipe for their success has been in the early game.
And you got to think back to that second qualifier or so, Cold and Rapid. They were taking the time of actually farming teams out the sky. It's what allowed them to kind of take off and break away with points. So there are different, dynamics that will play out. And with an 8-game format, I mean, anything can happen. So we'll see who can actually keep their cool, break away with a strong lead, and then remain consistent. Sales invert right now, actually eyeing up Chimp and company. They don't seem to have a single clue that this team's nearby. They have plenty to work with, but Sales invert, I'm content with what's happening here. They're just gonna go on and get on out, hit the super pad here. And look at that, they actually spot the duo nearby too, so they seem to have this entire drop on lock here.
Yeah, well, one team's kind of lurking, trying to set up plays. You see Booga and Braids, one of them immediately going down. Noisy and Neo are using this opportunity to not let them actually reboot back into the game. They complete the wipe. They take out Booga and Braids early, and that's their 4th elimination of this game. And that's huge for a team like Noisy and Neo, because now they have a lot of space around them. If they pull zone, they really don't have to do anything for the rest of this game.
Yeah, unfortunate. Talk about being one of the first teams to get full eliminated here now. That's a tough one to have to deal with. And, you know, we're all fans of Booga, of course, here. Want to see him make it to these late events.
I know I said Booga and Acorn made it, but
to be a part of if you're a professional player.
what the
You get
fuck
so much
happened?
playtime on the actual stage, right? It's so much different than the regular VR
What's going on
experience,
with
but
Booga?
yeah, and we'll just have to see who the top 2 teams are going to be that end up breaking
And
away
it's
here.
not
It's going to
Peterbot,
take some standout performances. Let's be honest.
not
right?
on
The level
Fortnite
of,
right now.
you know, a duo that's obviously in
I
this
don't
lobby.
know
I mean,
if
when we
it's
started
stepping
rattling off the
automated
teams
or
that
what,
need to
but
get qualified, they
yeah.
all sound like true contenders for the top.
Yeah, I think Zeke said it himself. If you look at that list without any context and you kind of think these are the teams qualified, you're like, okay, cool. You know, these are the top teams on the region, but these are the teams that still need a spot. And some of that storyline, you know, you think about a team like Reet and Cooper. You notice they're not in this lobby. It's not because they didn't qualify, Monsters, because they went on over to NA West. We'll see them in the finals, seeing if they can grab that spot later on. But that just goes to show how stacked this region actually is getting overall. And you see another one of our new teams here, Threats and Visuals. I know you mentioned possibly Threats going down early, but they have a little bit of an uncontested spot on the north side of the map. So that's kind of the luxury of our uncontested teams. If they do go down early, the chances of them getting back into the game and possibly getting a reboot because it's early in the game is very, very high.
Yeah, likely taking out the sky, maybe just taking a nice little gander as they were trying to get to their drop map. Either way, Mason and Noxy now, we get to kind of tune in here. Seems like they were being held down by a player up on the mountain. Mason's got a lot to deal with. Not the greatest loadout to take it to the distance, but got that extra pizza party with them, so things should be a-okay here. You think about the changes coming to this as well, right? Like now kind of becoming a shield utility item. It does make it very interesting to stack up.
Yeah, I think the changes overall to just all heals in this meta is just drastically different. You know, some of our previous qualifiers, you know, we had splashes, we have chug chugs, the slap pizza, we even had slurp juices at times. All of those accumulate into quick heals. You can stay in the zone, you can take fights, and you can heal up rather quickly. With the changes to the meta, not just the weapons but the heals as well, you're gonna see less and less chances of teams being able to stagger themselves back, make those heroic plays because the instant heals aren't there. You have the med kits like you mentioned. The pizza does grant HP, but I think it's like 5 HP each, and then you have bandages. You can go ahead and hit the mending machines, but you kind of taken away a whole strategy when it comes to this qualifier 4.
Yeah, take a look at Yamzo and Josh here. Talk about strategies. They're still staying inside the storm here. After pushing that other duo out, you can see they kind of take their positioning now, bring their heals with them. They're likely looking to buy a little bit of time here. They're in no rush to leave the storm, and you know, you really don't have to worry so much about, well, I was gonna say, you don't have to worry about Storm Surge at all, really, right? It's a completely different dynamic because traditionally it turns off when the 40-player cutoff is there anyways. So for them, it's just more of trying to maintain consistency here and play for an end game now, which is really interesting because it's a very different strategy than some of the other teams might be placing.
Yeah, it's not as easy as just kind of sitting there boxing up because you still have to rotate to zone. And one of the things about Reload, which is widely different than actual BR, is you see there's 12 zones, just like the regular mode. But because it's so stacked and we have the best players in all of NA Central on this, you usually don't get placement points until 10th zone, 11th zone, and especially that's where the meat of it is. And that's also where all the chaos is going down. So taking it just to that portion of the game is only step one. And that's not even the hard part of the entire game. So I like how we're seeing teams like Rise and Curly, they're setting up position next to a launch pad because again, with some of the changes to the meta, launch pads and the way you can't stay in zone are huge.
Yeah, most definitely. Coming over to Higgs and Curve though. He had that first elim. Now we're watching them play box to box. Very curious to see how this duo plays out. This is again the first instances we're seeing for some of these newfound duos playing alongside in a little bit more of a serious environment. Granted, of course, the loadouts, the meta, everything's going to be a little bit different, right? The map's not going to be exactly the same, but At the end of the day, team dynamic, box-to-box fight plays out as you know it. True and the same. Cold and Rapid, what better of a duo to test your might against if you're Higgs and Curve?
Yeah, just looking at Cold loadout there, you see he kind of has that heavy AR. He has the Morphite SMG. You know what that tells me, Monster? That tells me Cold had went down and got rebooted, because another one of the big changes in Reload is depending on when you get rebooted back into the game, you kind of get a little bit of a loadout. You see Cold right there. He has that heavy AR. That means he was rebooted at one time or another. Luckily for him, though, Rapid was able to lock down a location, so he's not only able to drop back in, get a full loadout, but do so safely to put them in shape for the rest of this game.
Yeah, interesting. Rapid even goes there to go ahead and consume the pizzas just for that extra 10 HP in order to not use the Flowberry Fizz. Just really flexing how important it is to keep that for endgame, for taking high ground, rotating. There's so much you can do for that, even with a single tick. Ritual Agers, though, on the other side, coming off a little bit of an underwhelming land performance for them. They did manage in the end to pull through a top 15, but it was quite the dicey start. But can they kind of get it all together? You know, pro players have their ups and downs. They have their moments where, you know, you just come up short. Everyone's due for a bad tournament here or there, but now it matters most, given that there's just a couple of qualification spots for the next land here. Muzz and Sphinx on the other side are looking a lot more comfortable here at the Elite Armory.
Yeah, honestly, Muzz and Sphinx, of course they want to win. You want to align their pockets with just a little bit more money, but they are playing with a whole different pressure than the majority of our teams. In fact, there's only 4 teams that are playing with similar pressure like Muzz and Sphinx, because they already have their spot secured. And this time around, Muzz and Sphinx, they are contested by Acorn and Bolt, but because the POI is so big, that allows them the luxury to split it, at least in the early game. We'll see how things continue to shake out if Acorn and Bolt need some early game eliminations in the second half of the tournament. But as of now, they're just kind of content playing a slow and standard game of Fortnite.
Yeah, definitely shows that they're playing for the money, not the glory, not the highlights or the clips. They're just trying to pop off and continue to do well for themselves. Let's take a look at what we have going on here. Big rotates coming through like this. They're going to be able to have their pick of the litter right now of where exactly they want to position themselves. Likely to go for a bit of high positioning. But no, instead they go down low, try to get some re-farms going here, and recycle some of this building material and play the outer edge.
And this is the portion of the game right now. I would even include 5th zone, 6th zone, where reboots are still on. They are active, and you kind of get that pseudo loadout I was talking about. But Monster, where are you going to land if you go down and get rebooted? That's why 5th zone, 6th zone, even though you do have that second chance opportunity, you do not want to put yourself in a bad position to go down. And that's why you see Cold and Rapid, they're not taking that approach above all the covers, using shockwaves. They're literally on the ground, in the mud right now, just trying to get any bit of crevice they can feel confident with. And they're barely in at the edge of zone. You see they have the Fizz, they have the launch pad, so if they play this perfectly, they can rotate and skip the next couple of zones with that launch pad Fizz combination.
Yeah, most definitely. And you can tell they need that comeback, right? Trying to fight back for the materials there. We'll see how they end up faring off with the metal. Everyone swapping over to the metal, just given how the Elite Armstrong plays out. Queasy for Scare. We'll update on the loadout. Things are looking pretty good across the board here. And they have those 6 shockwaves to work with as well. Here we go. Zone pops. Gonna push them back to the right side of the map here. Markers are already coming out. This is landing right on top of Rapid and Cold there. Early rotates coming through from Muzz and Sphinx. No surprises there.
I'm seeing a decent spread for most of the teams here. A good chunk of them already got essentially a good pull towards the front side of zone over towards Elite Armory. It's the one towards the back that you do still got to worry about. And if you kind of look at the loadout, 3 shockwaves in Cold. They have the once launch pad for Rapid. So just looking at the loadout, looking at where we're at in the zone, Cold and Rapid might need to get an elimination here, some sort of refresh the second half of the game, but they're in no rush to do that. Josh Diamzo, much better position, lacking some med kits, but overall they're maxed out with the Fizz. They have decent shockwaves. They have a little bit of a rotation to go, but because they have those shockwaves, they can one-hop their way there just like this.
Yeah, this is a team that I'm really excited about. You know, I wanted to see a lot more from Josh, you know, meeting him for the first time at that LAN event, but hey, gotta get those early in-person game jitters out the way. So he's now gotten that experience under the belt. Talking about teams that are, again, needed to pick up the performances here. AJ Major's dropping a little early here, so Ritual's forced to drop this pizza party. They're gonna have to play what they can with a little bit of white heals that they do have now. And this is where we talked about zone 10 or so. Things are going to start getting really interesting here. Aegis once again, unfortunately, gets caught on the rotate out the sky there. Looks like they were trying to Flowberry fizz their way in, and it just doesn't work out for them.
Yeah, literally the last team to rotate in. Everybody looking back and trying to target him out. Aegis able to kind of roll his way in towards the zone, hopefully trying to get some of those builds on over to Ritual, but I don't think he's in a position to reap any of that reward. Muzz and Sphinx looking down, trying to get space. They're the ones that are going to get all of that loot and all of the options as well, because you see Sphinx making sure to grab that launch pad here, going back in for seconds, and this is going to be a big tool in the tool belt of Muzz and Sphinx. You combine that launch pad with the fizz. So many other teams are going to do it, and that's how you bypass a lot of the chaos that goes down below.
Yeah, they're setting themselves up for success here in game number 1. It's going to save them a ton of material. Bolts, Acorn already on the move now, using the shockwave to get that stamina boost there. It's going to allow them to get a nice, perfect early rotate to the front side of zone. They'll be able to creep their way in here shortly. Other teams making a move now. More shocks coming out. Bolts just eyeing up the competition nearby, just trying to download what's happening all around him here as they're looking to prepare. Queasy, of course, looking to set himself up for the high ground here, staying true to the moniker and bringing Scare alongside of him. Scare's already had a couple eliminations there. He's second guessing himself. You saw Ritual up there. Might have just rendered out a distance there for a second.
It's one of the benefits of the launch pad with the fizz. Up top, smooth sailing. Curve down below, though, going through a bit of struggles. Not even necessarily in the same box with Higgs. They're going to be separated, but Higgs is trying to put in some damage, force all the other teams out. They're probably telling each other, we'll reunite later. We just need to make it past this struggle here. Higgs is going to lead the charge, get to the front, allow for Curve to back him up. Cold and Rapid, same thing for them, but just a few less resources than we've seen on some of the competition so far. He's going in for an elimination on the Dozier, but gets cut short for the ramp. But persistence is there from Cold and Rapid. They just need to find the opening.
Not gonna lie, it's so interesting watching Cold kind of lead the charge there. You saw it was his decision to turn back and try to fight on the edge of the zone there for a refresh. Talk about teams rendering out a distance, looking up at the sky. Of course, you have the Bolts and Acorn here, the latest to take the launch pad, float up to the sky here.
And my
Visuals and Braids are right underneath them, and they're almost trailing them, right? Trying to bait them to likely take the shots from Queasy and Scare, who, by the way, were contested. They were challenged a bit there. I'm curious about their mat counts, but jumping over to Muzz and Sphinx, already eliminations are starting to come through. Cold and Rapid end up picking up the first set.
Yeah, that's a big elimination for them. We saw the huge lack of resources. You even see it so. Rapid, the one that usually leads the charge, tarping. The bait and switch, Cold's going to go ahead and buy him time so that way he can heal up safely. Rise went down, Curly's by himself, and there's 18 teams still up, Monster. 3 teams need to go down for just the slightest of placement points, but there's 7 solos running around this lobby trying to hold on, make it 8 as Boji does go down to Neo. Him and Noisy still wreaking havoc here any chance that they do get.
Crazy. Almost a majority of the lobby is solo at this moment, but either way, you just got to stand up a little bit longer to start earning yourself some placement points. Meanwhile, talking about the high ground team, that material count is starting to run low. Cold finds another team by the wall. There it is, a full team elimination there. That's one of the duos that was in the lobby, so still plenty of solos left. But as I start to talk it out, Queasy ends up getting taken out there. Scare's left by himself. Enough and Salt actually end up fighting for the high ground here. And now Acorn and Bolts are thinking about it.
Yeah, you see them on that second layer. That's something that Acorn and Bolts do best. They just hide underneath them. They basically mirror their tarp. That way they're not an easy target, and they can safely move through and decide what they want to do. But a lot of the pressure from Enough and Salt and going to everybody else down below. Iamzo, Josh probably taking some of that pressure. But as they're getting distracted, Bolts, Acorn are going up. They're going for the high ground. Said they were waiting for this moment. Bolts even hitting mammoth shots on the fly to secure that high ground for him and Acorn here in game 1, putting themselves in the driver's seat.
Resurgence of that mammoth pistol in the hands of these pros are just so deadly. Let's see what Bolts can do here now, though. As they miss all their shots, they're actually out of material as well. It's Iamzo who's got the strong positioning up top, and even he has to concede it here in a second, but he bounces back to another little bit of high ground nearby. Meanwhile, Rapid's by himself. Cold finally gets eliminated there. Sails and Vert here jumping into the box, the opponents, pushing everyone out. But what I'm seeing is all the teams we've jumped into, very few of them have any mats to work with.
Yeah, Sales even just dropping scraps, hoping Vert can make at least one piece to work with. Bolts, turns, and burns, takes down Curly, ends a huge solo run, but they lost their high ground throughout all this. A necessary evil for them to try to stay alive. Sales goes down. Vert has to abandon ship. He can't be the hero if he doesn't have any builds here, and there's still players pushing in from all sides. They were contested up above, and now it's Josh and Yamzo on the high ground.
The only duos actually left in the lobby right now, but no, as I talk, we're just hitting everyone with the caster curse game after game, round after round. But here we have it, Yamzo just trying to figure out, where did my teammate fall from? Who was it that put the damage down? And even he's left confused here. Acorn and Bolt are the only duo standing, but once again they get demolished by Yamzo. What is happening?
Back-to-back eliminations by Yamzo. He took high ground, and he made sure to make it count. Now he's going against Neo and Noisy down below. We've seen them take out multiple teams. 9 eliminations so far, but huge chunks of HP going out the window. Yamzo dropping, taking the fight to them, and taking game number 1.
So deserving as well. They really fought back for it, and Yamzo clutching up the 2v1 when it mattered most. But even he, for a moment there, had to find himself, had to get his bearings back on the tracks there, because there was just so much going down there, Jacob.
Yeah, Josh and Yamzo almost got taken down by Acorn. It was so close, but a team that already has their spot secured wins game number 1, Zeke.
Zoe? Hello? We just win a 1v2 like that casually in game number 1? Okay, Vivid, I don't even know. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, man, you know, Zoe, you really did all you could. Second place, pretty dang, oh, you won. I forgot who Zoe was. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and leave. Good luck, everybody. Good luck.
You forgot who Zoe was? Zeke, I mean, come on. These guys got 8th, 4th, and 2nd in the last 3 qualifiers. They were actually the 3rd most consistent duo in terms of placements, being beat out just by Cold and Rapid and Peterbot and Pollo. But yeah, they kind of just won out in terms of the flip-flop that was kind of happening on the high ground. And after that, it was all she wrote. I mean, I know MDF was kind of feeling the hurt a little bit when he saw Josh kind of go down, but Yamzo still being alive, man. He can never count these guys out.
Yeah, and we saw that flip-flop on height. Like Vivid said, it looks like Yamzo and Josh took it at the perfect time. For a second there, it got scary with Acorn and Storm taking out Josh. It was the 1v2. Yamzo took the W for game number 1, showing why they have that spot already secured in the Esports World Cup.
And that's what's interesting, right, Blake? Because if they are in the top, let's say 5, right, that is, now we're not looking at the top 2 to qualify. We're looking at the top 3, right? Every team that has already qualified, they're gonna make that roll down 1 additional slot. So wow, I'm just shocked. That was a crazy clutch out of Zoe. You love to see it. That was just game number 1. We are gonna go to a break. When to return, we got to talk about more, because there was a ton of things happening on the high ground. We'll see you in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone, to the Reload Elite Series. Game number 1 starts with a bang. Josh and Iamzo come out with a victory royale to start things off. Oh my goodness. There's so much to break down because High Ground was just crazy. I'd love to take a look at the standings, though, because after that victory royale, Josh and Iamzo are currently in first place. But as we mentioned right before the break, that little llama crown, that means they've already qualified. So now that top 2 becomes a top 3. If we stop the competition right now, this would be the top 3 to move on. But obviously 7 more games to go. Acorn and Bolts here. Wowie, wow, wow. They are looking to earn themselves that qualifying spot. 63 points out of the duo. Now, obviously at 3rd place, 6 elims is pretty good, right? But you know, Vivid, if we keep this consistency throughout the next 7 games, I feel like this is an easy qual, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The duo is already looking good, and surprisingly enough, kind of going up for the higher ground. You can see this is kind of when the mess started. We did see Queasy and Scare have a pretty solid foothold on it for the beginning of the moving zones, but as soon as it kind of entered that 11 zone is where all the duos started to go up for it. And Acorn and Bolts after that, even though they did, you know, kind of lose the high ground that they went ahead and secured, they did have to drop down and eventually did go down and get 1v2 there by Iamzo. But, you know, you can't even blame the guys. Iamzo was kind of on one that game.
Yeah, and we talked about, are these players feeling the pressure today? And we said no. And Acorn and Bolts are showing that. They have something to prove. They had a crazy qualifier 1, struggled in qual 2 and 3, and they're here in qualifier 4, showing up
what
in game
happened
number 1,
in the
showing
fourth game,
the
but
potential that
come
they
on,
have.
Buddha.
I loved seeing Higgs and Curve there in that first game as well, right? Super low front side of zone, keep pushing on, you know. They're really trying to make a name for themselves here. And that was a pretty strong first game, right? It was a top 10 to 7th place with 6 eliminations again, right? So though this is just game number 1, I have to believe we're just going to keep this pace going, right, Viv? I just have to believe this is Higgs, this is Curve, we can qual.
Yeah, a lot of the times I like to favor some of the teams that do play these, you know, kind of like front low or like low ground positions. Obviously, it is still being fought for. Like, we have some big name duos down there. Obviously, we're going to see like Cold and Rapid start to fight for that as well. But, you know, the fact that we did just kind of talk about how chaotic high ground kind of looked, and the fact that Higgs and Curves are a duo that kind of are going to be playing that low to mid ground layers, and they're already doing pretty well. I feel like I would favor this, though, just a little bit more than maybe I initially did, just because of how scary high ground looks.
Yeah, and I think we got to give credit. They only got 7th place, but 7th place is final moving zone, because we saw that final zone close and there were still top 10 teams. So getting that consistency in game number 1 is a great start for them. And if they keep it up, they're going to be on their way to the Esports World Cup.
Woo! And obviously I want to top my hat to Noisy and Neo in that game. 2nd place with 9 eliminations.
Yeah. Wow.
Man, I'd love to continue breaking this down, but I'm getting word. Games are ready. We're jumping right back into the action of casters. Take it away.
Honestly, that was a good game number 1, Monster. Iamzo and Josh really setting the tone and the pace, contesting that high ground late in the game. But as you know, in an 8-game tournament series, it's the second half where things start to ramp up in terms of pressure. So let's just get right into game 2 and keep it going.
Yeah, I tend to forget how fast these games pick up and then close, and that's why we have 8 rounds of this ahead of us. This time, though, Higgs gets the touch base. You know, last game, he's saying, hey, Monster, give us a little second. Let me get down and situated. This time, he takes out threats pretty quickly, but Agers is here as well, so a lot of, I guess, influence here at the drop. Agers is going to find himself elimination. Curve has to play very smart here. Little does he know, Agers has got no backup, but better safe than sorry here. Talk about quite the mix-up as this all just went down that fast.
I thought it was just gonna be double contested over hostile hold.
Fuck.
You got those ears team. You got along with Tyler. You got Higgs and Curve who kind of split off, and then you got Muzz. Muzz and Sphinx are literally on 2 different points of the map as of now. But Muzz already has a spot secured. Knows waiting until the last second to get eliminations can be good. You can make a run, but why not build yourself a cushion early? Already with this 1 elimination, Muzz is affecting the whole other side of the map. The big thing though, does Acorn and Bolts notice that Sphinx might be a solo?
I think this is really interesting from Muzz's side too, if you think about it, because all the commentary we provided game 1 for Muzz and Sphinx was, hey, they're qualified, they're playing very passive, it looks like they just want a shot at the money, right? But this is like a completely different tune here, and I think they recognize that as well, like you mentioned. But Look at this for Bolts and Acorn finding that early elimination here onto Salt.
Wait,
a nice pickup too, considering
what?
Salt and his teammate made it very far into
Where
the
are
last game. And they
people
were playing
laning? What?
pretty much spoiler for some. Back it over to Muzz, just fighting
Bot
with
in
no
the pit.
fear
Hit
here.
the bot
And
on.
he is actually bobbing
Opa,
off,
game over.
claiming
Beat the
body
bot
after
on.
body. This is a big pickup though. That's onto the likes of Scare. Obviously, Queasy's duo
Well,
here.
the
so
bot step
Muzz
one
gotta be
game
careful.
because
There could be
C-Bane
danger
and
nearby.
still win.
Yeah,
So
this
now.
is, I feel like from what we've seen, it could be
fucking
more.
tough.
We've already seen at least 25% of the lobby land separate from their actual teammate in a way to try to get eliminations. And if you imagine, Agers was already in the feed taking down threats, so Muzz has some sort of a clue if he remembers that Ritual might be by himself. I saw in the feed that Poyo already got elimination onto Salt, so Enough might be by himself, and now he's taking a 2v1 against Pete and Poyo. I do believe he lasted long enough to get his teammate back in the game. Yes, he did, but he's gonna fall, and now they're getting put in the spin cycle.
Well, there you have it. Last game. You know, if you missed them, now you get to see exactly what they're here to do. 2 quick eliminations for Peterbot and Poyo here. Already starting to rack things up. Meanwhile, in the feed, though, Boji gets the best of Rapid. Booga gets the best of Queasy. So a lot is already unfolding here in game number 2. As the action seems to be picking up here. But, hey, what we're noticing, though, Jacob, like we talked about in the last game, is that duos, full duos, aren't quite yet fully eliminated, right? So there are still all the teams in the game that basically have a chance.
Yeah, I believe in duos compared to, you know, trios and squads. It's about a 12-second respawn timer, which gets cut down for every knock or full squad wipe plus elimination that you do get. So if your teammate does go down and you're able to get a knock, even if you can't clean up the elimination, that just gets him back into the game a little bit faster. And it's just all about surviving if you know your teammate went down. We saw Bolts go down in the feed before, Acorn surviving long enough, Peterbot and Poyo. A kind of a different approach that we've seen some of the other teams doing so far. We've seen solos venture out, try to pick up the eliminations. With Peterbot and Poyo not being in game 1, they have some time to make up, and they're doing it together.
Yeah, I like this. And not only that, they're not looking for solos, they're fighting full duos. They're like, what's up? What do you guys want to do? They are just taking the battle to anyone who wants to entertain them. Booga sticking around for a little too long. He's poking his head out, poking the bear here. And now Peterbot and Poyo have officially marked them out and have considered if they want to push that way. We'll see what ends up happening. Take a look here, though. Jack and Boji, we talked about that Booga fight. Well, it's Jack who kind of initiates here. Boji follows up, gets the finish onto Rapid there. And those are great points now starting to rack up. You know, when you saw the leaderboard there after game number 1, 6 elims was our first place team. Really not that much, right? Considering it's a reload format, you can get so much more. So I like this early aggression from everyone.
Yeah, I think everybody, you know, game number 1, it doesn't matter what format it is. It's kind of that feeler out type of game. How are the teams playing? Where are they landing? What kind of risk they're kind of willing to go for in certain situations. I think rather slow and tame game in game number 1, everybody is getting that similar idea. It's time to pick up the pace. It's time to get aggressive and really take control over their own destiny when it comes to this qualifier 4. You don't want to look back when you're in game 7, game 8, thinking, man, we should have just got more aggressive. 1 or 2 eliminations could have changed the course of our entire tournament. So I like teams doing that right out of the gates here.
Most definitely here. Well, start to zoom in here onto Chimp in 20's situation right now. Zone 3 here approaching. They're actually playing this nice and slow here, trying to see if they can catch an ambush, maybe someone unsuspecting, rotating nearby, but there's just no movement here in the center map right now. Rise and Curly don't want to expose themselves too early at all. They're doing the exact same thing, just kind of looking around here, biding their time, waiting for endgame.
The only unfortunate thing is if you kind of look at the difference between Rise and Curly kind of sitting in this spot, hunkered down, they're not maxed out in terms of their loot and materials, but comparison to 20 and Chip that have 20 builds combined, that's a world of difference. So the longer they stay there, the harder it's going to be for them as the zone gets closer and closer, forcing the action with a lot of these teams. Dozier and Tyler, no eliminations this time around. They probably saw how busy their actual POI was this game, and they're just trying to take a slower approach, a more careful and calculated one.
Look at this. Talk about careful and calculated. Queasy just trying to take his time here. Still working his way through the zone, but you can see the opponents are sitting right above him, and Scare's going to take that unnecessary damage here from the rotate. Queasy's trying to see what he can do here to back him up with some shots, but just such a disadvantage having your opponent sit up on this bridge, and Threats is no stranger. This is actually where he shines best. He's got some exceptional aim here. The Mammoth pistol in hand too.
Especially since he's already upgraded it once. That's one of those things you can kind of just see, even if you don't know where the shots are coming up. If at least 90 HP or more gets kind of chunked out for a player, you know a Mammoth or a hunting rifle has something to do about it. And hitting both of these players down below, Threats and Visuals are now getting the confidence to try to push on over. Queasy kind of stuck in a weird spot, trying to go ahead and make it to where that indestructible terrain is on the backside, and that way you can kind of find a way out of this position. Because even if Squeezy and Scare have to abandon each other, as long as one of them stays alive, that's a win.
Yeah, well, at least Scare and Queasy get hip to hip here. Visuals and Threats end up peeling back just a little bit. I'm assuming the zone revealed to them. They have quite some distance to go here. As do Bolt and Acorn now. The zone's going to continue to pull north, northeast. This is not going to be favorable at all for these teams. But hey, Bolts already has those 2 elims. So he's sitting pretty strong here. Going to go ahead and mark out Northern's duo there to the side, as Peterbot and Boyo likely playing the opposite side of that duo as well. Let's take a look what Higgs and Curve are up to right now. Entering in from the Storm side. They've taken a lot of damage here.
Yeah, luckily for them, they don't got to rotate at all for this zone and possibly the next one as well. Basically right in the center, give or take a few centimeters north or south. And for Higgs and Curve, they don't even necessarily need the eliminations. They had a little bit of a different strategy this time around. Higgs did get that one trying to go for early aggression. Unfortunately enough, it didn't last for long, but Curve was able to stay alive to get that reboot back into Higgs and put them in a good spot here. And you can see why them and a bunch of these other teams are trying to lock down a spot inside of the zone. It's only the 5th, so reboots are still on. But just like I said in that last game, Monster, where are you going to land? What loot are you going to get? So going down here can put a huge damper on your game.
It's getting a little nervous for a second. I saw someone moving in quick on the zone there. Peterbot and Boyer were moving, but just a team floating on by for some new positioning. And even there, things are starting to get pieced together here for Peterbot Boyo. Looking off in the side, you have Muzz and Sphinx. Looking a little hurt. The fact that they haven't healed yet seems to have had a little bit of a desperate early game so far, and the Storm not treating them very nice. Scare and Queasy still opting to play deep into the Storm here. They got to be careful with that Storm sickness, and also the lurk here from Enough and Salt, who are beating out the bandages right now. But they don't get seen, so they're just going to go ahead and use these themselves. So a couple of chug barrels there too, so it should be just fine to bounce back and get back into this game here.
Yeah, if they have enough gold, they got that mending machine. They probably took some patch-ups right there. It might have been cheaper to do the med kit, but timing is everything here, especially since they know Queasy and Scare already bypassed them on this rotation. The longer you go, the more teams that could potentially kind of hold you out from one zone to the next, though. You're seeing half, or at least a good portion of the zone is open water on the north side. The western side has the mountain as elevation changes. There's a huge dip in the middle. The east side, something similar. So this zone, honestly, if you're not prepared for it, have your IGL strategically trying to figure out what rotation you're going to make. This one's going to be terrifying.
Yeah, this is a pretty tough zone. I'm not sure I'd want to be caught anywhere in the near term of the valley of this kind of layout here, but this is where Yamzo and Josh feel comfortable, kind of opting to be a little bit low here, not over committing to one side nor the other, depending on, of course, where the next zone pulls will determine a lot. Some are actually opting to stay inside the Storm there too. Overall, seems to be like everyone here is just going to be looking to buy their time, right? There's 19 duos still standing here. Things are going to start heating up very quickly once we get into that zone 8 and 9 final movings.
You see majority of the teams kind of stacked up on the left side where that mountain range is. And that's for good reason, because if the zone pulls back on over to the west, the teams that did not position there are going to have a hard time having to use their shockwaves or their launch pads or even crash pads to try to get up that mountain. Everybody else is already there. And if it pushes away towards the north, towards the east, it's just one shockwave from the top of that mountain. So they're prioritizing a future position instead of just trying to get somewhere that has less and less players kind of stacked around. But in a few seconds here, Monster, reboots will turn off. So all these eliminations going in the feed, you better hope they go ahead and reboot before that timer doesn't allow them to.
Yeah, just a couple seconds now. And here we have it. Reboots are officially shut off. So things are going to play much more standardly here in now. no more room for error. Bolt and Acorn go for a quick rotate here. Ooh, little mistake there. The little Volt up. Bolt's gonna be forced to use a shockwave. But either way, Acorn pretty much pauses things down, waits for his teammate here. Look at this. This is cutting across the water. So it actually is going just about the worst place it could have gone, to where most of this wasn't in land for the early rotate. So you have to have shockwave off of the high ground and across this lake here.
And interesting enough, I think Threats and Visuals might have been one of the only teams that positioned on this north side, kind of predicting it would go over towards the water. But as soon as it does, you saw the lay of the land. So many teams immediately shockwave over. They use their crash pads to try to cover the distance. Peterbot and Pollo, a few seconds ago, were one of the teams that were trying to emerge as the high ground leader. Muzz and Sphinx, though, this is a team, they don't necessarily go up for the high ground unless they have a clear cut and open opportunity. They like running these mid layers, finding perfect eliminations, and then catching teams off guard. So Peterbot and Pollo, they have to watch out for that, and so many other teams using shockwaves and launch pads to try to twink away this high ground.
Well, we saw Queasy and Scared last game try to go for high ground early. Didn't work out. Peterbot and Pollo looking to mirror that same situation, but execute a little bit better. We'll see what they can do. They're entering in, keep in mind, with pretty much max material, so it doesn't get better than that. But once again, 20 teams pretty much still standing here. This is a very, very much contested lobby right now. All the good teams are still in the game here. Peterbot, Pollo, no resistance right now, but look at how everyone is kind of favored onto that side because they rotated him from there, and it's actually going right back across the water where the majority of the lobby actually just came from.
Yeah, typically I think this is disastrous, the open water, the land, but as you said, that's literally the exact location. So there could be some builds to utilize in that direction. And I think that's why Agers and Ritual, they have a decent spot in zone for now. They know other teams are going to have to shockwave and rotate in front of them, and that's what they're going to use to try to get some damage, hopefully pick up some sort of elimination before they themselves are forced to have to rotate forward. Boji does go down, essentially leaving Jack by himself on this rotation. You see Cold, Rapid, they're getting ready to use that launch pad. They don't want to have to go through this 8th zone and fight for their lives.
I like this. I like this play a lot. I think this is the smartest thing you could do. All the other teams are thinking the same exact thing because the terrain's really interesting. Not only is it cutting across the water, that water, the majority of the players shockwaved across it anyway. So it's completely open terrain. Anyone who sets up early down there is likely going to get targeted off of some fresh builds, but Queasy, Scare want a touchdown first. Muzz and Sphinx end up getting the first little bit of land there as well. But it's Peterbot and Pollo who've opted to stay low and just target all the teams here in the distance. They still want to keep fighting for this high ground here, really trying to bully up. I like it. They got it.
Yeah, it's a huge investment of resources, though. 9th zone, a little early from what we've seen from game number 1. Teams trying to take it in the 11th and 12th zone to try to disrupt all the plans that they have going on. But you can see Curve was able to get another drop on a Noisy, but not able to reap the rewards just yet. Not even fully clean up that elimination. Sphinx is going to actually steal that one away. Iamzo gets one onto Mason of his own. So already you're seeing duos being separated, left into solos. A bad peek for Iamzo, trying to go over the top, get stuffed with a big shot, but at least he's able to survive and get to the front side of the zone, which is huge.
Yeah, this is crazy too. This is the first time we're going to see Pollo on high ground with the rocket launcher as well. That RPG is devastating from up above. So this is going to be a very interesting endgame now. Cold and Rapid playing the mid-ground layer right here. Zone's going to continue to pull Eastern, so they will have to fight their way through these teams. But just the pressure they're laying down alone has forced those teams to give them the layer for free now. Meanwhile, on the ultimate low, Muzz and Sphinx are playing the front side here, already fighting through. Higgs and Curve looking to join them as well, repeating their positioning from the last game too.
Playing out to them and Peterbot maybe win.
You see with those early game eliminations, they were able to kind of set themselves up with loadout. We saw them kind of stagger themselves. Pollo with a little bit of a splat, dropped down to 1 HP. I saw it in the background for Booga as well. This one with Peterbot going down puts a lot of pressure onto Pollo, but what we've seen through recent weeks, even months, Pollo is one not to be messed with. He shoots another rocket, not able to connect, but he's pushing players further and further down below into one another.
I'm pretty sure he rocketed himself because there's no way Peterbot took his own self-fall damage there. So something went wrong with the RPG, but it's Queasy and Scare who took control of the high ground once again here. I think Queasy's just trying to make a statement here on NA, showing that they can win games. That's all that they want to do and prove right now. Oh, look at this. Ritual loses Agers there in the box. He has to scramble out now. Gets caught by another team there. They don't quite know here. Meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, Ritual needs a refresh or something to keep him in the game here, but he manages to slip his way out of there too.
I'm not sure how he's able to survive all this, but with 17 HP, he still has a dream going right now. Even Shockwaves, but he's quickly running out of builds. Acorn and Bolts as well. With little material left, they instantly have to Shockwave to the front. Muzz, though, Sphinx, different plans, 2 more eliminations. They got a refresh. Muzz right now is controlling that full front side of the zone, but Booga and Braids. Booga's another one. He's splatted down to 1 HP. Braids keeping him alive, and for good reason. They make it into the top 6.
Well, there you have it. 6 elims for them as well. So talk about a comeback story here in game number 2. But look at the consistency now. Coming in for Cold and Rapid, jumping them up to near 100+ points. Bolts, though, still in the game. Finds more eliminations. That's going to bring them up to 7 now. Muzz, Sphinx still cooking here on the low ground as well. Just chopping things up, making it look nice and easy for them as they're in full control and very healthy as well. But have they met their match here? Cold, though, unfortunately gets put out. Muzz gets put out as well. And it's all up to Rapid here to try to make something big happen, but Sphinx with a great shot from the side here. This is all Sphinx builds, and he, of course, manages to get the full cleanup.
Yeah, you don't have those instant heals. Have to keep on moving forward. Salt and enough. Out of nowhere so far. 5 eliminations. We saw multiple teams on the high ground, but they are going to be the last one standing up above. Sphinx gets an elimination onto Braids. Big shot onto 1. And now he has the high ground, trying to turn the tables the best that he can, but enough in Salt. They concede the elevation. They're saying, hey, if you want to win this fight, you're going to have to come down to us. Heal off is not possible, but Salt goes up, trying to distract Sphinx, but I'm not sure it's actually working because he's down to just a sliver of HP, but Sphinx fighting with every fiber of his being. Somehow the zone doing some of the work, getting the knock onto Salt, shockwaving up. He knows he needs the Cypher to stay alive. 2 ticks left, and Sphinx gets cut short along with Muzz. Enough and Salt clutch up to take game 2.
And we've seen Enough and Salt do very well in the end games here. They did good in game number 1. They do great in game number 2. But what a close game there. Sphinx with the hero play, trying to go for the high ground. Very well executed. But in the end, I am Enough. And Salt the 3x there. Zeke, take it away.
Oh, man. Oh, you fly from the air. You send a shotgun shot, and you think, all right, it's cool. I'm about to get a little help. Nope. It's still, look, second place still pretty good. And Blake, this is big, right? Salt and Enough getting themselves a victory royale as a duo in a chaotic game. It's got to feel awesome.
Yeah, Salt, obviously an up-and-coming player. He got top 10 in back-to-back solo series, now showing what he can do in a duo game mode. Actually, my ex-duo, so it's good to see him out there getting his first victory royale and his first Reload finals.
Listen, Blake, I mean, you were telling me and Zeke, you know, what was going on behind the scenes. This is actually now multiple times over the course of just these 2 games. We have seen this duo going up for the high ground. You gotta tell the people what you told us, man. Go on.
Hey, I was talking to Salt before this. I was like, hey, man, go out there. You got this. Play confident. He's like, we're going for height 8 out of 8. And what happened the first 2 games? We saw them on height, both of them, and they take the victory royale in game number 2. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can keep up this pace, this momentum that they have going into game number 3.
Yeah, love to see it. Obviously, there's a bunch of big name duos going up for the high ground, so they do have a tall task ahead of them. But I mean, obviously, so far it is working out perfectly. Obviously, first game they did get cut down a little bit short, but second game works out, like I said, perfectly as well. They pick up the VR, and obviously it's going to switch up the standings a lot. We'll have to see very shortly, Zeke, if it's going to be enough, though, to put them in that top 2.
We'll have to see, Viv. We'll have to see. 105 points is quite a bit, but we'll see after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more action from the Reload Elite Series.